Hello, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and other genderqueer fellows. My name is Eve, and I play games, and today we're going to be discussing a game that I'm making myself. It's called Champions TCG. It's a trading card game, or I suppose you would call it a card game. End of sentence, period. Because we're completely online at the moment. We're using a client called Dueling Book as kind of a sandbox card game sort of thing. And we're playing with cards of my own design and mechanics of my own design. And I hope that after watching this little tutorial of how the game works, maybe you'd check out the Discord and the rulebook below for more in-depth resources, and maybe you even want to tag along and become a beta tester. So what is Champions TCG? Well, the basic conceit of Champions TCG is you have a guy, and this is your champion. This is your guy that is always in play, and the basic idea is you want to kill your opponent's champion by equipping your guy with a big sword and then poking their guy with the big sword until they have 0 HP. And you want to do this before your HP is reduced to 0. So what kind of cards do you do this with in Champion TCG? Well, you have your champion card, of course, as we were speaking about before. You have your weapon cards. You have your armor cards. Your armor cards are what defend you from attacks. You have your accessories, which are like bonus effects. You have your maneuvers, which are like secrets and Hearthstone, if you know about those. They're like trap cards. They're basically surprises that you catch your opponent with, and you have your tactic cards, which are like sorceries in Magic the Gathering. Basically, they represent like strategic burst from your champion. In order to understand the game, however, we're going to have to get into the anatomy of the cards. This is the anatomy of a champion card. Here you see we have the striking. The striking is what you use to attack your opponent. What you want to do with the striking is reduce your opponent's HP, as you see in the middle, to 0. So if I were to attack my opponent directly with this 5 striking, and I attacked my opponent who had 40 HP, their HP would become 35. Of course, as you can see in the effects here, this guy is going to gain more striking if he has a sword equipped. And the weapons, which we're about to get to, will increase the striking considerably. And we have a carrying capacity. So these are basically the two core functions of the game. You have striking, and you have carrying capacity. On every single card that you equip to your champion, there is going to be a stat that is this carrying capacity. It's going to be this weight. It's going to have this weight on it. As you can see, the weight. And the total of all the weight equipped to your champion cannot exceed this carrying capacity stat. So you see we have 30. This has 10. If I were to have this great sword equipped to this champion, I could not have 21 more weight on it. I could only have up to 20 more weight on it. So what are these weapons? Well, the weapons, they have a striking, a durability, and of course the effects like before, and the weight, as every single card that you equip to your champion will have. The striking is basically you increasing the attack of your champion. So if I were to attack you with this guy, and he's a little basic, he doesn't have anything equipped. I mean, the art, he sees he has a sword and a shield, but just imagine this is just a bland guy. He has nothing equipped. He just punches you in the face. He's going to deal 5 damage. But if I give them this big-ass sword here, right, you'll add this 7 to the 5, and suddenly his striking becomes 12. And he's hitting you with the sword for 12 damage. So instead of going down to 35 like earlier, you'll go down to 28. And that's basically the conceit there, is that you give this guy a sword, he hits you, and your HP goes down. And the HP, it's like you're damaged for the rest of the game. So if you take 12 damage, it's not like you heal up later. You stay at 12. Here's the durability stat. The durability stat is basically how many times you can use a weapon. So think about this big sword. This big sword, like any other weapon in the world, it's eventually going to run down. It's going to break, right? So every time you attack with this sword, This durability is like a counter. It goes down by 1. So if I attack with it once, its durability goes down to 3. If I attack with it another time next turn, in the following turn I attack with it again, it's going to go down to 3. Go down to 2 rather. And then if I attack with it again the following turn, it'll go down to 1. And if I attack it again, it'll go down to 0 and it'll be destroyed. It'll go to the discard pile. Then we have our weight, as we were speaking before. The total of all your weight cannot exceed the carrying capacity of your champion. So that's the first bit, is attack. But you might say, that seems kind of crazy. I can just hit my opponent for 12 every turn. The game will be over in 4 turns. That's a little silly. That's not very well designed. Well, there's offense, and then there's defense. We have our armor cards here. Basically, the armor cards, you equip them to your champion like you do your sword. But you're not attacking with them. They just kind of sit there and they protect your champion. So if your opponent has an armor piece equipped, you cannot attack them directly. You have to attack their armor piece. And whenever you attack an armor piece, their defense stat you see here acts basically as a mini HP stat that's absorbing damage for you. So you see this 14? If I were to attack this 14 with the earlier 12, the 7 and the 5, if I were to attack this 14 with the 12, it would go down to 2, and then it would stay at 2. And then you have your weight stat, like we were talking before. So if we were to have this dupla plate and the greatsword equipped, that would be 23, and I, on this Dawn Knight, could only have exactly 7 more weight equipped to it. So it would be up to 23, and I could not equip more than 30. So, and then not all, but a lot of armor also have these effects in the middle here. So this one equips another armor to it. Another armor that, incidentally, happens to weigh 0, so it won't weigh down on your champion's carrying capacity. Next, we have accessories. Accessories function basically the same as armors, but a little bit different. They weigh down your opponent, weigh down you. If they weigh down your opponent, that'd be a little crazy, right? But they weigh down your champion, and they have these special effects. And so basically, the way an accessory works is you equip it to your champion, and your opponent can attack it like they can attack an armor piece, and they have to destroy them before they can attack a champion directly. But, as you can see, accessories don't have a defense stat. The way you get rid of an accessory is simply attacking it once. If you attack an accessory, it instantly dies. It instantly goes to the discard pile. But, that's something I might have forgot to mention earlier. If I have this defense down, say I swung with it with the 12 we were talking about earlier, and it's down to 2, and then I attack it again with 12, your opponent's champion is what we're going to call piercing damage. It's going to take piercing damage. So it's at 2 HP. I swung at it with 12. You take 12 minus 2, and the opposing champion will take 10 damage directly to their health. So this guy would go down to 30 health. But that's not a thing with accessories because they don't have a defense stat. So if you attack an accessory card, it just instantly dies and the opponent takes no piercing damage. It just goes to the discard pile and is done weighing them down. And then, of course, they have effects, just like the other cards we were talking about earlier. The next cards we have are maneuver cards. Maneuver cards are not cards that you equip to your champion. They're cards that you have in your hand. And whenever you or your opponent declare an attack, you get to discard it before damage is dealt. So before you deal any damage to my armor pieces, before you deal any damage to my champion, I'm going to go ahead and discard this poor forging from my hand. I'm going to break your weapon because it only has 1 durability. That makes sense. It's like I said before, they're like secrets, they're like instants, they're like trap cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! Hearthstone Magic the Gathering. Basically, they're just surprises. They're just, you attack me, and I have this maneuver in my hand, and I get to discard it straight from my hand and activate its effects. Next, we have tactics. Tactics are like maneuvers, except for you don't activate them whenever you attack. You activate them at the same time in which you would be equipping weapons, which might make more sense whenever I explain the different phases of the games. Basically, they're cards that function the same as maneuvers, wherein you discard them from your hand and you get the effect, but they're not cards that you activate whenever you attack. They're just cards that you're going to activate during your turn, you discard them, and you get the effect. So this one says your champion loses 3 HP and you break target armor equipped to the opposing champion. It's quite powerful. If your opponent has an armor piece and it's like their only armor piece, you use this, you break it, and then you get to attack directly. So you might hear all this and you're like, wow, this sounds so cool. How do I start to play a game? Well, the first step is to make a deck, of course. You're going to make a 30-card deck built around a selected champion. So you see I have this champion, this Dawn Knight. I see his effect is he gets more striking if he has a sword equipped, so I might build a deck that has a bunch of swords in it. The thing about building a deck is you can have multiples of a card in your deck, but you can only have up to 2. So if I wanted to play this Firecracker card, I could include 2 of it in my deck. And then I set that deck to the side, and I put the champion in play, and then I decide who goes first in a random fashion. So my opponent, assuming they also have a deck, they also set their champion forth. You guys can play rock, paper, scissors, you can roll a dice, you can, I don't care, you can play blackjack for all I care. Just decide who goes first in a random way. And then finally, you're going to draw 6 cards from your deck, and you're going to begin the game. These 6 cards are going to be your starting hand, and they're going to be the first cards that you begin the game with. And so you say, I've drawn my 6 cards, what now? Well, on the very first turn of the game, you're going to immediately enter the draw phase, you're going to draw a card. So you're actually going to go up to 7 cards in hand. And then, as soon as you are finished drawing your card in the draw phase, you're going to immediately enter what's called the action phase. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the tactics that I think will make a bit more sense. Once you're in the action phase, you get to equip your armor pieces, you get to equip your weapons, and you get to play your tactic cards. And that's what you do in the action phase, is you get to play cards. And then, after that, as long as it's not the very first turn of the game, so if it's the very first turn of the game, your opponent doesn't get any chance to equip any armor pieces to defend them or anything. So you don't get to attack. If you went first, you don't get to attack. But you get to draw a card before your opponent, so it evens out mostly. And then once you're done attacking your opponent and their armor pieces, you enter the post-duel phase, wherein you get to play more cards. If you go the action phase and you play some cards and then you attack and your opponent does something during your attacking phase that makes you decide, I want to play this card from my hand after I'm done attacking. You just enter the post-duel phase and you get to play more cards. And once you're done in your post-duel phase, you immediately enter your end phase, where you just pass the turn and your opponent gets to do it all. And that's the end of my slideshow here. I hope that it made a lot of sense, maybe made half amount of sense as maybe it should have. In the description, I'm going to have a Discord server and the rule book that I've actually written up that probably makes a little bit more sense because I wasn't going on a tangent in it. I actually sat down and I wrote out what made sense. If you're interested, join the Discord, read the rule book, and I'll see you in the Discord. We can play some games. Have a good day. Have a good day. Have a good one. Have a good